Welcome into the Sports Buffoons podcast. What's going on out there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls out there of the world? Welcome into the makeshift Sports Buffoon studios here. I am Mike Settle here, going to run it for you today. Our boys Tanner Dawson and Jason JG are out of action for this week anyway. Tanner is up there hanging out in Milwaukee somewhere, probably watching some baseball, probably drinking some beers, doing the good old buffoon thing. And JG's got a personal issue, so we're going to head on the AFC North here today with a Steelers buddy of ours, Bill. Welcome on, man. How you doing, man?
Hey, Mike. How's it going, buddy?
Doing well, man. I appreciate you coming on and hanging out. And now we're going to really break into because the Steelers are an interesting team right now. They got a lot of talent, but I'm just curious what's going to go on with that quarterback situation. So right now, I just saw the odds came out for the AFC North. Ravens are plus 170. Which is kind of surprising considering they technically finished last in the division last year. And now they're projected to be the number one team in the division of the AFC North. So as far as the Steelers go, I mean, it's an interesting thing to look at because you just drafted George Pickens, so you have weapons there. What's going to go on with the quarterback situation?
Well, I tell you what, Mike, I think that, they're leaning more towards Mitchell Trubisky, I think, at this point in time. He took the bulk of the first team snaps and OTAs. I think it's the best scenario for Trubisky to start. I mean, let's face it. Kenny Pickett needs to sit and just kind of observe and learn the NFL a little bit. He doesn't need to be, thrown in there with the pressure of having to try and win games, when he's, a rookie. And I think that they're leaning more towards that. I think, Trubisky, let's face it, he's he is a veteran. He's been in the league 5 years, with Chicago. I think he was, given a little bit of a raw deal. I know Matt Nagy was the coach for the Bears when he played there, and I don't think he utilized him the way he needed to. And, and then he goes to Buffalo and backs up Josh Allen. And, the whole reason he was brought here was to be the starter. So, and he was given a 2-year contract, and it's going to cost the Steelers almost nothing, to get out of, because there's still a lot of questions, I think, about him as a starter, but, I think he's their best case scenario right now. Like I said, I would not rush Pickett into the fold when you don't have to. Like I said, he needs to sit, and he needs to learn and learn. Let's face it. He's not a linebacker. He's not a running back. He's not a receiver. If you want to be a quarterback in this league, there's a lot steeper learning curve. And there's no reason to rush him in the lineup. So.
Right. The good news is, at least looking over the roster, that if he is at some point in the season thrown into the fire, he's at least got a lot to work with, plus a great running back. So, you talk about the
Right.
Bears in that situation. I feel bad for Justin Fields. It feels like any quarterback going to Chicago right now is going to fail regardless of how much talent you have. And
Yep.
with Trubisky in that situation, he's always going to be looked at as kind of a failure because obviously Mahomes was taken 10th overall, Watson was taken later on, and Trubisky
Yeah.
was number 3 overall. And I
Right.
think at the end of the day, you get him in the right system with the right coach, then I think you could really get the most out of him in that way. So
Well,
I'm curious to see how it
what?
unfolds for him.
Yeah. Here's another thing too. He fits great in Matt Canada's offense. He's athletic. He can move in the pocket. He can run with the ball, and that's how Matt Canada's offense is kind of. That's the bread and butter basically of Matt Canada's offense. So I think he'll fit good, in Matt Canada's offense. So.
Yeah, very nice. So as far as Kenny Pickett goes, I mean, is this a guy you think that they took just because they felt like they had to get a young quarterback at some point in the draft? Or do they actually
Yeah.
believe in him? Because this was a weak quarterback class. And so
Right.
do they actually believe in him, or is it just kind of a necessity?
Well, I think they believe in him. I mean, I tell you what, he was he was a hell of a quarterback at Pitt, and I definitely think he's the future. Um, I think by 2023 we could see Pickett starting, and I think we could see him as a Steelers quarterback for the foreseeable future. I really do. But like I said, I just this year I'm very reluctant, and I think the Steelers are very reluctant to throw him in. He needs to just kind of, like I said, he needs to sit and learn the NFL without having that pressure of to have to try and win games. And let's face it. I know you're a Chiefs fan. Mahomes, his rookie season, he didn't even, he didn't even dress. I think he dressed one game. He
Yeah.
was in street clothes for 15 of the games his rookie season. So there's no reason to, throw him in there. Now, if you have some injuries, then that's a different story. And then what do you do with Mason Rudolph? Mason as a starter is 5-4-1, not horrible, but I don't know. He's had some very, very bad games, and when you look at
Yeah.
it, he's the games he has won. He didn't win because of him. They won because of the defense. There was other factors, and So I just I don't know. That it'll be interesting to see where whether he's the backup or whether he's third string. And if the Steelers are trying to move him and get something in return for him, I'd make him the number two. Hey, that's more trade value when you're trying to, move your backup quarterback as opposed to your third stringer.
Yeah, I think with Rudolph, he's kind of in a situation where he's probably going to be a career backup at this point, which is not a bad
Absolutely.
gig to have. I mean, Chase Daniels made
No,
a great life being a career backup. But I
right.
just think in that situation, it's like you got Trubisky who's trying to kind of revamp his career, and then you got Pickett there, and
Yeah.
there's just not going to be a chance for him to play. I don't think.
No, I don't think there's any chance of him being the starter. He's like Trubinsky though. He has had some experience, but he hasn't had, he's had some success, but he's not had nearly enough to convince, the coaching staff that he could be a starter. I mean, it's plain and simple.
Well, my favorite pick you guys had in the draft, by the way, was George Pickens, and I saw a highlight
Yeah,
of him today from camp. A great back shoulder catch, and man, the guy
yeah,
has just incredible athletic ability, and just it's kind of that he's just got a nose for the ball in a way to where it's just his hands are just really really special, and I
he
think you're
was
going to
great.
see yeah, you're going to see a very special player there in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, he was great for Georgia. I mean, I know he had that ACL injury, but he was, yeah. I mean, I liked it, And here's the thing, I know we're kind of getting into talking about receivers now, but I heard that Deontay Johnson they sat him out. He reported to camp, but he's basically on the sidelines with the clipboard. So he's saying that actually Tomlin was the one that kind of made that call. We'll see. I don't know. I, I just don't see him getting top, you know, receiver money. I just don't see that happening. But I
Right?
don't know.
What would
Stranger
be their
things have happened.
reasoning? What would be why would he not
Well,
be dressed out?
I just don't. Well, first of all, you're going to have to turn around and do the same thing with Chase Claypool, you know, next year. So, I mean, I don't know. Deontay Johnson. Hey, he's had some he's had some very good games. He's a splash player. The guy can make plays. He's had some issues dropping the ball. I know when I talked to Dan earlier in the week, we addressed this, about how, he's kind of had a case of the dropsy, especially last year. But yeah, I agree with you. George Pickens, great pick. And that's the thing. The Steelers, they've done this for a few years now in the draft. They take decent receivers in the middle of the draft. They've been
Oh
able
yeah.
to do that. And and I think Calvin Austin's another one that has some potential too. So we'll see how it pans out for him.
Well, if everything works out in your favor, you're going to have Pickett and Pickens together for a long time, and that can end up being a great tandem.
Yeah,
It's going to be a tough, difficult thing, I think, this year for Pittsburgh. Just looking at the entire AFC and just how good everyone is, and obviously the
yeah,
the Ravens are probably going to bounce back because the injuries, are not no longer going to be there. We assume because last year going
right,
into the year they were just riddled, and it was hard for them
yeah,
to really get going consistently. It was amazing they did as good as they did with all those
yeah,
injuries. And then, of course, the Bengals improved the offensive line. And
Yeah,
that's just going to be a team that I think overachieved a little bit last year, and
I
I
do
think
too.
they got better. And so,
Yeah,
with that said, I mean they got better, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get hot like they did at the end of last year and go on this roll where they just start beating everybody. But
you
still,
know what?
good team.
You know, I just thought of that. Last year for the Bengals was a storybook year. I mean,
Yeah.
Burrow comes off that injury. Hey, you remember in the beginning of the year they lost to the Jets. And I
Oh
kind of
yeah.
was like, you know what, same old Bengals. But you know what, they were able to get it together, and they were able to just do enough and peak right at the right time. And I think I tell you what, like you said, they were able to to really really win some games there at the end. But I tell you, a big part of that was Joe Burrow. I really believe that he was really good last year. Um, we'll see.
Yeah. Jamar Chase and the emergence of him coming on right away and having just a
Yep.
spectacular rookie season was a big part of that too. And then of course the improvement of T Higgins too that helped. But yeah, they did
What?
lose. They had three big losses. They lost to the Bears, Jets, and then they
Yeah.
lost to the Browns 41-16 as well.
Right.
So it's like, how does a team do all those things and then beat the Chiefs twice? I mean, come on.
Yeah. And I tell you, who else had a good year was Joe Mixon. He had a
Mhm.
yeah he's a pretty solid running back for them. But yeah, I mean, the Steelers are going to have their work cut out for them. I know when I went on with you guys the last time, I had them at 8-9. I, you know, I don't know. Looking at the schedule, they could be 9-8. I mean, I don't know. There's some games on there that is concerning, and there's other games that you think should and could be wins, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, like I said, that AFC North is not it's there's no easy outs, and you know you were saying about the Ravens, Lamar Jackson. I don't know. He's kind of been streaky at times. It's just sometimes I mean, he does some amazing things, but then sometimes he just, it seems like he's lost out there. But um, and then you have the Browns. I mean, this whole Deshaun Watson thing. Um, we still don't have a decision on that. I know Judge Robinson is still kind of. I know she's had the what do you call it, the paperwork for it for like 15 days now, and they say a
Mhm.
ruling's going to come any day now. You're looking at probably, I would say, 4 to 8 games suspension, I think, for Watson. So I think
Yeah.
I know that the Steelers play them, I think, week 3. So I think you're definitely going to see Jacoby Brissett, and I think you'll probably see. I think they play them on week 16, I think it is. So I think you could probably see Deshaun Watson in that second game, but that's I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen there. You know, she could recommend 4 games, and Roger Goodell could come in and say 12. So who knows what's
Mhm.
going to happen there?
Well, the Browns are going to
So
be a weird team regardless, and Watson's kind of got himself in a situation where that team doesn't have a lot of receiving talent. They do have Amari Cooper on the roster, but after that, it's a huge drop off. And you just
yeah,
walking into that situation. I mean, you have to rely on the running game with Chubb and Hunt all year long to
right,
be winning games. And Jadeveon Clowney went back to the Browns. He made a statement saying that he wanted to go back so he could be with a contender, with a winner. And I was like, well,
yeah,
there was other teams out there that wanted you probably that were in better positions than going
hmm,
back to the Browns again. And
right,
I still think the Browns have potential to end up being a good quality team just because of that ground game.
yeah.
And the defense isn't
Well,
terrible, I suppose. So
yeah. I mean, Garrett. I mean, you've got some good guys on that defense. Said Clowney. Clowney's fallen off, I think, a little bit, but yeah, you got that 1-2 punch with Chubb and Hunt. I mean, that's that's I think the best running back tandem in the league. Period.
yeah.
Those guys are just like I said, it's like a 1-2 punch. And so, but
So what's going to be the
yeah,
biggest flaw for the Steelers, you think, going into this season? Because when I look over the roster and I think about what they've been molding here, I still like the front seven quite a bit. I'm much more
yeah,
concerned about the secondary, what's going to happen with the safeties, and then the corners after Mika Fitzpatrick. I mean, that's probably the biggest weakness I see on the team right now at the moment.
corners. You said,
Yeah, corners
yeah,
and safeties.
yeah. I would agree with you there. They've got for cornerback. It's been they say it's going to be a battle. Cam Sutton and Witherspoon and Levi Wallace. I know, Tomlin has kind of praised Levi Wallace, and I know he likes Justin Lane as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm concerned about the inside linebackers. I know they got Miles Jack, and they still have Devin Bush. But that I think we talked about it the last time. That run defense was dead last year in the league, and I think they've addressed it. I hope they've addressed it this year, and I think the biggest issue was that inside linebacking core, and especially Devin Bush. I mean, he is just really underachieved in my opinion.
Yeah, that's
But
what's crazy. You got these athletic guys at linebacker on the team, and then some reason Bush just hasn't quite panned out the way you expected him to be.
yeah, and I mean, you know, another good signing was Larry Ogunjobi from Cincy. I think he's going to be a solid defensive end. And then you got Chris Wormley they signed him from Baltimore.
And
So
Tyson Alualu's on pup right now, but I mean, that's a guy that's
yeah,
been around the league for a long time, so those veteran presences definitely help out on the interior.
right. You have the duo of T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward, and like you said, Tyson Alualu, and then Isaiah Loudermilk. I mean, I know he was rotated in some last year, and he was pretty solid. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. Like I said, yeah, I was if I was to say one flaw, um, I would have to say, yeah, I would have to go with you in cornerbacks, and I would have to actually go with the offensive line too. I just, I don't know. There's some unknowns. I know they signed Mason Cole. I think he's a solid center. They got, they re-signed Chooks Okafor. Chooks, he's kind of like, one of those guys that lacks. I don't know. He lacks aggression, in my opinion. Dan Moore Jr. I know, he played pretty well. But from what I understand, they got James Daniels. He was another, guy that was on the Bears that they signed, and I mean, he's a pretty solid guard. Kevin Dotson and Kendrick Green. I heard today were they were both being rotated out with the first team. So, but yeah, I would say that their biggest flaw is the offensive line. I think they've addressed it. I mean, it was horrible. It's been bad for a few years. I think it has improved. I think with some of those signings like Cole and and James Daniels, I think it has, they have improved it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, and sometimes great quarterback play can help a bad offensive line. We saw that over the years with different quarterbacks in the league, and even Peyton Manning, he had some good offensive linemen in his time, but it was his pocket presence that allowed him to be able to only take 12 sacks a year. He just
Right.
knew he could feel the pocket, knew how to get rid of the ball quick, even on a bad offensive line. I don't know if
Yep.
Trubisky has that in him yet. I don't know if he ever really will. It's kind of a natural
Yeah.
instinct in a lot of ways, and you guys are going to find out really quick about that if Trubisky
Yeah.
can get his career returned back around, or if it's time to just go with Kenny Pickett sometime in the mid part of the season, might make sense. But
Yeah.
we'll
You know,
see.
I tell you one thing that kind of, I've heard some people, Mike, saying that, if Kenny doesn't start this year, it's going to be a wasted pick. And I just kind of think that's pretty asinine. Like I said, it's, you know, they're not, like I said before, there's a steep learning curve with quarterback, and I just think there's no reason to rush him, and there's no reason to play him before he's ready. You know what I mean? There's just no
Right.
reason to do that. And you know, yeah, if you have injuries, if who knows? I mean, Mitchell Trubisky could go down in week 3, and then but I just, like I said, the best case scenario for me, you know, is that they start their season with Trubisky, and and they just kind of sit, Pickett, and let them learn, and let them absorb, and get ready, because they definitely didn't draft him to sit on the bench. He is 24 years old. He is kind of an older,
Hmm.
draft, but you know, I say 2023. I think it's going to be his job. But we'll
Yeah,
see.
it kind of has to be. I mean, at that point, because yeah, you mean you can't these days set a rookie 2 years in a row. I mean, that's probably where it's too far. 1 year is
Right.
always going to be fine, no big deal. And a
Yeah.
lot of times it does help a quarterback. It helps a young guy understand the NFL,
Yeah.
understand how to do things the right way, and
Well, yeah.
we'll see
Yeah.
what they want to do with
Yeah.
him, I guess.
Yep.
So,
So.
looking at the division, do you want to do some predictions for me going down the list? Let's just go with last year's top team. Let's go from there on the way down. So the Bengals finished at 10-7 last year, and then of course
Hmm.
got real hot, going into the playoffs and won
Yeah.
3 in a row, and then eventually lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. But where do you see them falling this year on the record scale?
I I think 11-6. Um, I think they're going to win the division again. I just, um, yeah, I would definitely say 11-6. I think they improved this year. Um,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah, that's what I got down to. 11-6 was my prediction officially. Just because I mean this is a great conference that all of our teams are in here, and it's not going to be easy. And even though the Bengals got better, I mean if you're not getting better, you're getting worse right now in this at this point. So for me,
yeah,
it's they're 1 win better than last year. But what it matters is once you get to the playoffs, what do you do there? And I mean if for some reason Burrow's got that magic gem luck kind of thing going on, then I mean, he could be one of those great playoff quarterbacks. We got to see if it's consistent or not.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, he was consistent at the end of the year. Let's face it. I mean, he was like you said, they had some bad losses last year, but they were able to they were able to figure it out there, at the second half of the season. They really were.
Yeah. So, what do
So,
you think about the Browns? Where do you have them falling out?
well, that's I mean, really truthfully, Mike, I'm really waiting to see how this whole Deshaun Watson. I think that he is a. I think he's definitely a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah.
Um, I could see them 8-9, possibly 9-8. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah, they're a tough one. It's a mixed bag on that because it's just hard to say because you like some of the pieces they have. Like they're not the worst team in the league, but
Right.
also like if for some reason Brissett plays 12 games, well then you're maybe leaning more towards a 7-win season. Where
I was just going to say that.
If Watson plays 14 games or whatever, then you're probably more towards the 8 or 9 win season.
Yeah, I mean they're saying right now that his suspension could be anywhere from 2 to 10 games. So I mean,
Hmm.
and it could be 12. I mean, let's say he's like you said. Let's say he's out for the first 12 games, and you've got Jacoby Brissett under center. Like I
Hmm.
said, that's to me that could easily be a 7-10. You know,
Yeah, for
um,
me, I just look at it as like teams that can run the ball so well, and especially maybe like we talked about the best tandem in the entire NFL with Chubb and Hunt. Those teams just
yeah,
traditionally don't fail. I mean, they might not
right,
be the best team in the league, but they're not going to also only win 3 games. It just doesn't work
right,
out that way. I'm looking at this
yeah,
team, and I see a 9-8, and I'm gonna assume that Watson plays like 75% of the season is what I'm going with.
yeah.
And if that's the case,
Well,
I
if
like
you,
9-8, and
yeah,
see if he comes right back. And if he's the same guy as he was 2 years ago, then that's awesome. Just it'd
right,
be good for him, I guess. But I think he's good for football. I think he's a fun guy to watch. So I'm looking forward to seeing him on the field at some point. Obviously, I'm not interested in getting into everything that went on off the field,
yeah.
but just the
Well, hey,
situations.
hey, let's face it. He's not the first guy to have conduct issues. How about
Oh yeah,
Robert Kraft? How about
right.
Robert Kraft and what he did? Nothing
Hmm.
happened to him.
Yeah,
The
people
list
shrug
goes
their
on and
shoulders.
on.
They don't care. Yeah,
Yeah, the list
exactly.
goes on and on. Hey, he has 24 alleged cases, but they only reviewed 4 of them. You know, they
Hmm.
actually were going to review 5, but Judge Robinson said no, that the other one didn't have merit, so there was only 4. So I don't want to get into that, but um, you know, hey, it is it is what it is. I mean, he's
Yeah.
not the first, and he sure as hell's not going to be the last. So
Right, and it
you
looks
know,
like the Texans have a lot of fault as well to be involved in it. So, um,
yeah,
to me, it's just one of those things where yeah, the guy probably made some dumb decisions along the way, but I
Yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
it is what it is, and it's not like we should be punishing him like in a Michael Vick situation, where he's killing dogs or whatever, dog fighting.
Right.
This was a little different than that. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
and as we talked about, there's not no proof of anything. I mean, all
No,
this
there
has
is.
been is accusations. So
Right.
I just want to see him
Yep.
back on the field because he's good for the game.
I agree.
Let's
Yep.
see. Next on our list, yeah, it looks like we have the Ravens or Steelers, excuse me. So, what's your official
So
prediction for the Steelers?
so I said 8-9, but you know what? Looking at this schedule, I think they could win 9 games. I say 9-8.
9-8. All
Yeah.
right, you're not gonna like my prediction too much. I got 7-10 on my list for the Steelers, and it just comes down to quarterback play. I don't believe
Yeah.
in it compared to the rest of the conference. And just when you're battling, every great young quarterback in the league right now seems to play in the AFC. And I don't think Trubisky is going to be able to go touchdown for touchdown with some of these guys in the league. So that's why I have them down there. And the secondary is something of a concern to me. I think they're going to actually be better in run defense than they were a year ago. So I mean, they can't get any worse,
Yeah.
obviously. So I do think there can
Right.
be some improvement in that range. I just could see this team getting lit up in the air, and I think the safeties are going to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing, if I may interject here. Um, you know, I know we had talked about this. I can't remember if we talked on last time or if I talked with Dan about this, but you know, the Steelers have spent the most money on their defense out of the entire league. Okay, they've spent the least money on their offense in out of the entire league,
Hmm.
and to me, that's troubling because the NFL today, as you know, is all about the high octane offense. And
Yeah.
like I said, we've spent the least amount of money on our offense. Yes, we have some weapons. Yes, I think Najee Harris is a hell of a running back. Um, I have concerns with him because I think he gets too many touches. I know they just signed this I forget his name. They just signed him off the Titans, but you know Jeremy, I forget. I think his name's Jeremy. His name's escaping me right now, but um, Jeremy McNichols. Jeremy McNichols.
Hmm.
Yeah, they just because they waived Terrell Edmonds and they just picked up this Jeremy McNichols. But yeah, I mean they've spent the least amount on their offense, and that's to me that's I
Do you think that's
agree.
part of?
You know
Is it anything to do with the drafting? Because obviously they haven't had to spend much on offense, but they've also drafted extremely well at skill position players. So I mean, maybe just whenever that time comes, they can start paying out. But otherwise, the defense has just been pieced together, veteran by veteran, the guys that have already been in the league for a long time. I mean, other than T.J. Watt, and you've had Cameron Hayward for a long time too, but
yeah,
otherwise they've all been added together from other franchises. So
right.
um, maybe that's part of why they are such high costing on the defense.
Yeah. Well, Cameron Hayward. I mean, he's the only him and I think him and Chris Boswell. I think are the only guys that have won a playoff game. On that team right now. So that just goes to show you how young of a team it is. But yeah, you know,
I got a comment on here from, I think this is probably from Tanner on the Sports Buffoons account. We already kind of went over this, I guess, a little bit ago, but he was asking about when does the QB starter change, and I'm guessing he's talking about for the Steelers.
I mean that's the $1 million question. I think it's going to depend, on if Trubinsky stays healthy, and or if he gets, if they if they feel more comfortable with Pickett in there, there could be who knows? I mean, there could be a change, 4 or 5 games in. There could be a change 8 games in. Who knows? I mean, we
Hmm.
don't know. I definitely think that, like I said, I definitely think Trubinsky is the week one starter, and I think he's going to win the job in camp, and I don't think he's going to look back. But I think
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Who knows? We can't really predict. I I, I would say let's get through camp and let's kind of when they break camp see what kind of um, because from what I understand, Pickett didn't have too good of OTAs. He struggled in
Hmm.
OTAs.
Right.
So
Well, I just think it comes down to as far as how well is Trubisky playing, because it has a lot to do with if he's playing poorly and the team is 2-6, then there's probably going to be a quarterback change there. If for no other
yeah,
reason to give the team some energy and some excitement about
right.
having a youthful quarterback that has potential to step in.
But
Otherwise, I mean, if Trubisky plays well, he'll be playing the whole year then.
yeah, and I think that's like I reiterate. I think that's the best case scenario. So he he gets the job and he's able to play the entire season, and hopefully they can win 9 or 10 games and squeak in the playoffs. There, I see. He
Well,
said
let's
this. Can the
yeah,
defense carry the Steelers?
right,
Yeah, I think they can. I think the defense can carry the Steelers. I think that hey, in the past they have. In the last couple of years they've uh, there's been a lot of games where they've carried. I mean, let's face it, Ben. These last 2 years, I mean, he was not what the Ben of old. I mean, that's what age does to you. He was, but when you look at it, I've been saying this the last couple of years. You know, Ben was, defenses that the Steelers would go up against. They'd only have to defend 12 to 16 yards. Because that was all Ben was able to throw.
right.
And you know, he just he got rid of the ball a lot faster. He used to hold on to the ball and extend plays, and he just wasn't able to do that. And
Yeah,
and
his
I
body
I
broke
really
down.
yeah, and
And the crazy thing is, I remember last year him talking about being in some of the best shape of his life, and how someone had made a statement that he was obsessed with losing weight or something along those lines. I don't
yeah,
know if there's any truth to that or not, but at the end of the day, the guy has just been beat up. I mean, he's taken a lot of sacks over his career too.
sure,
So he's just kind of a beat up guy, and it was time for him to be done. I mean, I hate seeing guys like that, and Drew Brees, basically can't throw further than 20 yards anymore.
right,
It's the shell of their former self at that point.
yeah. Well, and it didn't hurt that after or in 2019 he had that elbow surgery on his throwing arm. That didn't help either. But
Yep. All right. So the last team we have here for record prediction is the Baltimore Ravens. Where do you have them finishing in the division?
10-7. I think they're. I think they could. I think they're going to be second in division.
Gotcha. I got them this year at 12-5. I have a big bounce back for them. Because they finished 8-9 last year, and that was with all the injuries that occurred. And I think J.K. Dobbins will be a huge piece of this offense as long as he's healthy. He did make a comment. He said, "I am damn sure going to be ready for Week 1," because there was some rumors out there that he wouldn't be. And I
Yeah,
just think if you give, if that running game goes out there and just explodes like it has, a couple of years ago when Lamar won MVP, then that's going to be a tough team to stop because they've already got a lot of great players on defense. And if they can make it work and if Lamar stays healthy, then I think that can be the best team in the division. But it's a tough division. I mean, you got a lot of good teams there.
yeah. If Lamar doesn't get COVID again, he's had COVID like 12 times.
Yeah, he must be
So
enjoying COVID. I don't know how he
I
goes about getting it so
yeah
many times.
yeah. He must drink a lot of orange juice. I think he has a hell of an immune system. So,
I guess so. I got one more question from Tanner here. He goes, "Does Jackson go MVP season?" So basically, if Lamar will do it again, it's hard to do. I mean, you know how many people have won MVP more than once? I mean, yeah,
yeah,
Aaron Rodgers has won 3 now. But
right.
I mean, it's hard to win, especially consistently. And I don't, there's so many good players. Like Josh Allen is a guy that's probably due to win it this year. So it's
I agree.
hard to say.
I tell you, that's going to be tough. I think the Steelers got them Week 5 at Buffalo, and I tell you, that's going to be a tough game.
Oh yeah,
So, you know,
that's a great
I'm
team
just
right
looking at this. I'm looking at the Steelers schedule. I mean, I think we talked about it. They're the least traveled team. They only travel six
there. Right.
thousand, a little over 6,000 miles this year,
Hmm.
and they stay in the Eastern time zone. They don't leave the Eastern time zone at all. So they're
Right.
the
I'm
least
I'm
traveled
curious
team.
about that.
Yeah, they're the
Just seeing how
least
that
traveled.
plays out.
Yeah, least traveled team. And but I mean they do have some. I wouldn't call this an easy schedule. I'm just looking at it right now, and it's but that is one thing they have going for them is their travel. I think Seattle's number one. I think Seattle travels over 29,000 miles, and they say they cross 34 different time zones.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's
So,
pretty ruthless right there, and they're gonna be
yeah.
struggling anyway, I think, with the quarterback situation there, so,
Yeah.
um, that they're probably gonna be in trouble on that
Yeah.
one. So, Bill, where can we find you at as far as on social media and such and, just things like that? What's your handle?
So, I do the stuff with Dan. I'm in the process of like kind of creating my own thing. I've been writing articles for him, and I'm just trying to get off the ground basically. And um, yeah, I mean, right now I don't really have anything. But I do weekly shows with Dan, and he's gonna, I'm real close to doing my own thing. I don't know what I'm gonna name it yet, but I want to definitely get something off the ground with that. And so to be continued on that one. So,
Very
but
nice.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I just been doing stuff with Dan. I enjoy Dan. Dan and I, we have some really good conversations. That guy knows sports, man. He really does. He can rattle things off like and I have a lot of fun with Dan. We enjoy talking sports. So
Yeah, Tanner's saying here, he said, let's enjoy the work, but bring it to, Let's Talk Sports and let me know if you need any help on it, so,
okay,
um, yeah, we
yeah,
we
I've
we
been kind of
appreciate you.
dragging. Yeah, I've been kind of dragging my feet on. I know Dan has kind of been like, hey, you need to do something. You need to create something. And I just I don't know. I love doing this. I mean, it's like my number one thing. I'm going to be retiring here, and well, I got a few years left, but after I retire, I just want to do this. It's and so, but I enjoy it, and I enjoy talking, Pittsburgh sports, so,
Mhm. Well,
and
it's
I
like,
enjoy talking I know a lot about a lot of sports, and it's my life, so.
right. So if you love talking about it so much, it's like how whenever we began this podcast here, it was because the three buddies of us would all get together and just talk about football all the time and talk about NBA and talk about whatever's going on in the Royals. And at some point, we're like, well, we're always talking all the time about sports. We might as well just do it as a podcast. I mean, we're going to do it anyway, so let's just do it
Yeah.
for the world to see too. So
Well,
that sounds exactly like what you want to do.
and but so I recently moved to Wisconsin, but I was in Pittsburgh. I born and raised in Pittsburgh. I was in Pittsburgh for 4.5 years, and I just in March I just recently moved up to Wisconsin. So, but I was gonna do that with some buddies. We were gonna and I said it was a similar situation, three guys, and the thing with us is we disagree with everything. So that makes for good, that makes for a
There
good
you go.
podcast, arguing back and forth and debating, and so people like
Yep,
to see that.
absolutely.
They don't always want people to agree with one another. They want to, so.
I have one more question here from Ayo Saba. He goes, "What does he think about Steelers podcaster urinating tree? What is that about?"
I have no clue what that's about.
Okay, I figured that was like an inside joke or something that maybe you would be able to
Nah,
fill me in on.
Steelers podcaster urinating tree. Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
drawing a blank on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. This guy says bench Justin Tucker, but yeah,
The
okay,
greatest
okay,
kicker in the league. The greatest kicker. Yeah. Okay.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. All right. Well, Bill, I appreciate you hanging out with me for a bit and talking some AFC North. Since the other buffoons weren't here, you mean you did awesome filling in and giving some good insights. So I appreciate you very
I
much, man.
appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
And let's have you on sometime during the season. If you play fantasy, love to have you on to talk about that as well. So we're
Okay.
going to be going all year long, every Wednesday, of course, even on a day like this. So,
Nice.
um,
Nice.
but anyways,
Sounds good.
enjoy your night and thank you very much, Bill.
All right, Mike. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right, guys, let's wrap it up here in just a moment. Yeah, the AFC North, we went over that for quite a while, and it's an interesting division for many different reasons because it can go different ways. I mean, I have the Ravens winning the whole thing here in the AFC North. I think the Bengals are going to be a team that are going to be right there with them. I feel like this is the year the Steelers are going to be at the bottom, maybe 1 year off, and then maybe next year come back around. But otherwise, I'm hoping next week we can get the whole Buffoon clan back together once again when we go over to the NFC side of things and talk about the NFC North. So that will be a great show once everyone is back and ready. Tanner's going to have to get off the beers for a while, I would say. And actually, excuse me, next Wednesday we're going to Chiefs camp. So next Wednesday, as a matter of fact, we might not be going over the NFC North as much because we'll be up there all day long getting all kinds of footage. I actually just bought a drone, so we'll be trying to get some, not on the field, but I mean, at least around St. Joe, and just kind of go about it that way. So lots more to come, you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. And let me know in the comments what your predictions are for the AFC North and if the Bengals can go run it back and do it again. With all that said, I will see y'all on the next one.